This is femur bone. It is the longest and strongest bone of our body. It is also called as thigh bone. It is approximately 45 centimeter in an average man. That is 1/4 of height of an individual. It is a typical long bone. Therefore, it has an upper end consisting of head and a shaft and lower end consisting of two condyles. For determining the side of the femur, we should see the head, which should face medially upwards and slightly forwards, and the greater trochanter should face laterally. Also, the shaft, the anterior surface is convex. You can appreciate the convexity in the posterior side. You can appreciate a prominent vertical ridge called as linea aspera. Also, the lower surface of the condyles should be on the same horizontal plane. Therefore, considering these points, we can determine. Here I have the left femur. For the anatomical position of the bone, if it is a left femur, we should hold it in a left hand. Here we can use the index finger and hold the femur this way. Here you can appreciate the obliquity of the femur. Let's see the features of the bone under the headings: upper end of the bone, shaft of the bone, and lower end of the bone. Coming to the upper end of the bone, it consists of head, neck, greater trochanter, lesser trochanter, intertrochanteric line, and intertrochanteric crest. Let's start with the head. It is articular. It forms 2/3 of a spear and it fits into the acetabulum of the hip bone to form the hip joint. It is covered by hyaline cartilage in the living, except at the center where there is a pit, otherwise called as fovea. Here there is a ligament which is called as ligamentum teres femoris. There are other ligaments with similar names such as ligamentum teres hepatis and ligamentum teres uteri in our body. Coming to the neck, it is 5 centimeter long. It has got two surfaces. This is the anterior surface. This is the posterior surface. It has got two borders. One superior border which is concave, one inferior border which is oblique. The axis of the neck and the axis of the femur makes an angle called as neck shaft angle, which is about 125 degrees in adults and 160 degrees in children. The neck shaft angle keeps the femur away from the pelvis so as to swing freely and increase the range of movement of the hip joint. The weight is transmitted from the head, neck, shaft all the way to the lateral contour. The neck meets with the shaft at the intertrochanteric line, which is intracapsular. It passes downwards and medially and continues with the spiral line. Next we will see the greater trochanter, which is on the lateral side. It is the quadrilateral prominence. It has got three surfaces. One is anterior surface. Here we can see the lateral surface. Here is the medial surface. It has two borders. One is superior border and posterior border. The anterior surface of the greater trochanter is rough and gives attachment to gluteus minimus. The lateral surface is divided diagonally by an oblique ridge into upper and lower triangular areas. This oblique ridge will give insertion to gluteus medius. Also, the upper and lower triangle area, they are occupied by a trochanteric bursa for gluteus medius and gluteus maximus respectively. Coming to the medial surface, here you can appreciate the trochanteric fossa, which will give insertion of obturatus externus, and also it is a site of trochanteric anastomosis. Here we can see another depression above and in front of the trochanteric fossa. It gives insertion to obturator internus along with two gemelli. Here we can see the upper border or the superior border of the greater trochanter, which will give attachment to the piriformis. The posterior border of the greater trochanter is continuous with the intertrochanteric crest. Intertrochanteric crest. Now I am turning the bone posteriorly. Here we can see a conical projection posterior-medial surface of the neck shaft angle. Here we can appreciate the intertrochanteric crest, which extends from the posterior superior angle of the greater trochanter to the tip of the lesser trochanter. The intertrochanteric crest, it is overlapped by gluteus maximus. Here we can appreciate a tubercle known as quadrate tubercle, which will give attachment to quadratus femoris. In the lesser trochanter, near the tip, it will give attachment to psoas major and to the base iliacus muscle. Coming to the intertrochanteric line, it will give attachment to capsular ligament and iliofemoral ligament. Also, it gives attachment to two muscles, that is the highest origin of vastus lateralis and vastus medialis. Coming to the shaft, it is convex anteriorly and concave posteriorly. We can divide the shaft into upper 1/3, middle 1/3 and lower 1/3. Let us look at the middle 1/3. It has got three borders. This is the medial border. This is the lateral border. And posteriorly, this is the posterior border, which corresponds with the linea aspera. The medial border and the lateral border, they are ill-defined. Coming to the three surfaces of the middle 1/3 of the shaft, this is the anterior surface between the medial and lateral border. This is the medial surface between the posterior border and the medial border. This is the lateral surface between the posterior border and the lateral border. Coming to the upper 1/3 of the shaft, here you can see the linea aspera diverges. The lateral lip of the linea aspera gets continuous with the lateral lip of the gluteal tuberosity, and the medial lip of the linea aspera gets continuous with the spiral line, forming an additional surface called as posterior surface. Coming to the gluteal tuberosity, it has got a lateral lip as well as a medial lip. 1/4 of fibers of gluteus maximus is attached to the gluteal tuberosity. Coming to the lower 1/3 of the shaft, here the linea aspera once again diverges. This is the lateral lip of the linea aspera, which is in continuous with the lateral supracondylar line or ridge. Here the medial lip of the linea aspera is continuous with the medial supracondylar line. The medial supracondylar line, it gives attachment to medial intermuscular septum and adductor magnus. The lateral supracondylar line, it gives attachment to lateral intermuscular septum, short head of biceps femoris and plantaris. Here we can see an additional surface called as popliteal surface. Now let us look at linea aspera. It is a prominent vertical ridge on the posterior aspect of femur that is the linea aspera. It is formed by fusion of three primitive borders, since all intermuscular septa of thigh converge to the linea aspera. Now, let us look at the attachments of linea aspera. Let us discuss the attachments from medial to the lateral side. Vastus medialis is attached on the medial lip of the linea aspera. The next we can see the medial intermuscular septum. Then we have the adductor longus muscle, adductor brevis muscle, then the adductor magnus muscle, then we have the posterior intermuscular septum, then we have the short head of the biceps femoris, then the lateral intermuscular septum, and the lateralmost and on the lateral lip of the linea aspera we have the vastus lateralis. Coming to the lower end of the femur, which consists of medial condyle and lateral condyle. It forms knee joint by articulating with patella in front and the condyles of the tibia below. Posteriorly, the medial and the lateral condyle are separated by a fossa called as intercondylar fossa. Coming to the medial condyle. The most prominent part of the medial condyle is called as medial epicondyle. You can also see another part that is called as adductor tubercle, which is the lower end of the medial supracondylar ridge. It is unique in three ways. It receives the insertion of tendon of ischial part of adductor magnus. It also forms an important bony landmark for surface anatomy. Also, the epiphyseal line of the lower end passes through this tubercle. Now let us look at the lateral condyle. This is the lateral condyle, which is comparatively larger than the medial condyle, and the most prominent part of the lateral condyle is lateral epicondyle. Here you can see a groove called as popliteal groove, where the tendon of the popliteus muscle passes through it. Posteriorly, here we can see the intercondylar fossa, where this is the medial wall of the fossa and this is the lateral wall of the fossa. On the medial wall, you have the attachment of upper end of posterior cruciate ligament. In the lateral wall, here we have attachment of upper end of anterior cruciate ligament. Here we can appreciate a V-shaped patellar surface, and the rest of the articular surface of the condyles are tibial surface. Now let us look at some important attachments of femur. Coming to the capsular ligament of the knee joint. The capsular ligament of the knee joint is attached as a continuous line along the upper border of the intercondylar notch, continues on the medial surface of the medial condyle 1 cm above the articular margin, reaches towards the anterior surface. Similarly, on the lateral side, it continues on the lateral condyle above the groove of the popliteus tendon, and it reaches the anterior surface. Here, the capsular ligament is deficient above the patellar surface for the upward extension of suprapatellar bursa. Coming to the capsule of the hip joint, it passes 1 cm in front of the intertrochanteric line, passes posteriorly onto the intertrochanteric crest, passes onto the superior border of the greater trochanter. Now let us discuss the ossification of femur. It has one primary center for the shaft and 3 secondary centers for the upper end, one for head, one for greater trochanter and one for lesser trochanter. It has got one secondary center for lower end. The upper end fuses at 18 years, the lower end fuses at 20 years. There is a medico-legal significance of ossification center at the lower end of femur. The secondary center at the lower end of femur is unique in the sense that it appears during birth or just before birth, that is the 9th month of intrauterine life. Therefore, the medico-legal importance is its appearance in radiograph indicates that the newborn baby found dead was full term and viable.